country founded on the refusal to have our lives ruled by a king, Congress seems to be controlled by the decisions of one man an awful lot. Take the Build Back Better agenda, heralded as a cornerstone of the Biden-Harris administration. For months, Democrats have tried in vain to persuade Senator Joe Manchin to vote for the legislation. The president has wined and dined him and staked his reputation as a consummate Senate negotiator on his ability to lead the horse to water and make him drink. But in the end, Senator Manchin would not budge, steadfast in his resolve to do what he claims is in the best interest of West Virginia.
The only thing I'm saying is this. I'm not blaming anybody. I knew where they were, and I knew what they could and could not do. They just never realized it because they figure, surely to God we can move one person. Surely we can badger and beat one person up. Surely we can get enough protesters to make that person uncomfortable enough. They'll just say, okay, I'll vote for anything. Just quit. Well, guess what? I'm from West Virginia. I'm not from where they're from, and they can just beat the living crap out of people and think they'll be submissive. Period.
And just like that, one man's vote derails the bill. If only everyone's vote counted as much as that of Senator Manchin, especially in the face of relentless attacks on voting rights that make a mockery of one person, one vote. But one man's refusal to even entertain altering the filibuster to fortify voting rights, again, illustrates the point. Even the act of protecting your access to the polls to vote in whatever way you choose seems to come down to just one man. The same man. The one who gets paid leave, paid for by taxpayers, as a United States Senator, but doesn't think it should be extended to you in the same way. One man's vote. You know, we spend our days watching to see how one, if not a select few, will vote. From Supreme Court opinions to Senate votes to a vice president's decision not to help overturn an election. We watch with bated breath to see how one person's decision will impact our lives, impact our freedoms, impact our democracy. You know, our Declaration of Independence begins with we the people, not I the individual. But here we are, still waiting for one person to decide how the rest of us shall live. Now, we expect political wheeling and dealing, but everyone, even a senator, has a right to vote their conscience and should not be strong-armed and browbeaten into submission, because that's not democracy. But we should also expect to have a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people, to not be perpetually dependent on the decision of one person. Is that how democracy is supposed to work? Joining me now, Congressman Jamal Bowman. He's a Democrat from New York. Congressman, thank you for being here. I'm happy to see you, sir.
Good to see you as well. Thanks for having me.
Now, Congressman, you're part of the Progressive Caucus, and you all had been negotiating in good faith with the rest of your party frankly, for months now, and you pushed through the infrastructure package with expectations of the spending package passing. Here's what he said to Fox News. Listen to this.
I cannot vote to continue with this piece of legislation. I just can't. I've tried everything humanly possible. I can't get there.
You're done. This is a no.
This is a no on this legislation. I have tried everything I know to do.
Congressman, what did you think when you heard him say that?
So this is exactly why tens of millions of Americans don't care about our government, don't trust our government, and are done with our government. Not just the Republican Party, but the Democratic Party as well. I was infuriated when I heard those comments, but I wasn't surprised because we had been sounding the alarm on this for several months, worried about what Manchin was going to do when it was time for him to make a decision. It went from $3.5 trillion to $1.75 trillion because him, his special interests, his donors, and lobbyists were cutting the bill for several months because they did not want this bill to pass. Why? Because this bill disproportionately supports people of color. It supports people of color. It supports women. It supports children. It supports those who are poor and lifts them out of poverty. Why wouldn't Manchin want to support that when this would benefit West Virginia tremendously? It's tremendously frustrating for me as a black man in America, because once again, it's an example of Joe Manchin as a white man showing that he doesn't care about black people. He doesn't care about Latinos. He doesn't care about immigrants. He doesn't care about women. And he doesn't care about the poor. He is a millionaire, and he has the privilege to kick the can down the road and not vote for this bill while the people in my district are suffering. We just buried a 17-year-old who was shot dead in the head a couple of weeks ago. This bill has $2.5 billion for violence prevention. It has universal child care, universal pre-K. It finally deals with the climate issue. The same way black and brown people and women were kept out of the New Deal, Joe Manchin's trying to keep people out of this bill today, and it's unacceptable, and we need to do everything in our power to make sure it passes.
So what do you say when he reacts and says it's not about people of color or trying to oppress or any of those things? He has articulated it's about inflation. You're not buying that.
That's not true. There's no research, there's no studies that support that. Studies show, and Goldman Sachs pointed that out today, that if we pass Build Back Better, it will uplift the economy. It will uplift people who are living in poverty. It will create cash flow. And it is the best way for us to respond to the largest global pandemic we've had in 100 years. I mean, this is, he's out of touch. He's out of touch with the research. He's out of touch with present day economists. And he's out of touch with the poor people in West Virginia and the people in my district who've been waiting their entire lives for this kind of support and investment from the federal government. And let me also say this. This is not just about Manchin. I mentioned it before. Big money in politics is destroying how we govern in Washington. Because if he were responsive to the people in West Virginia, where West Virginia has some of the highest poverty rates in the country, if he were responsive to them, he would behave and vote differently. But it's about his donors. He's had the biggest fundraising year of his career. It's about lobbyists who are spending more this year than they've ever spent in their entire existence. Speaking of pharmaceutical lobbyists. So let's speak about what the reality is. Big money in politics has to go. We have to respond to the American people, because if we don't have a democracy. Look at what just happened January 6th.
Congressman Bowman, so well said and articulated about what is really at stake here and what the motivation really is. Naturally, he disagrees, I'm sure, with everything you've just said. But you know what? The American people are going to have to reconcile what is happening and the loss of the agenda, what that really means overall, and the priorities of the Democratic Party, who are in the majority of at least 2 houses, albeit a slim one. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.